Is your heart ready for a story that will grip you, break you, and ultimately restore your faith in humanity? Imagine a single father, exhausted and desperate, clinging to his sick daughter's hand as hospital after hospital turns them away, offering no hope, no answers, and no compassion. It feels like a nightmare you'd wake up from, but for too many families, this is their reality. This is the true story of Michael Carter, a single dad from Ohio whose world shattered when his 6-year-old daughter, Lily, was diagnosed with leukemia. What follows is a journey of heartbreak, resilience, and an unexpected medical miracle driven by one doctor's refusal to give up. This isn't just a story about one family, it's a stark look at a broken healthcare system and the heroes who rise above it to save lives. Settle in, because Michael and Lily's story will leave you changed. Michael Carter was an ordinary man living an ordinary life. At 34, he was a mechanic in a small Ohio town, working long hours under the hood of cars to provide for his daughter, Lily. She was 6 years old, with a giggle that could melt the toughest heart and a love for drawing stick-figure families that made Michael's grueling days worthwhile. They didn't have much, no big house, no fancy vacations, but they had each other, and that was enough. Michael often said Lily was his entire world, the light that kept him going. But in the summer of 2022, that light began to flicker. It started subtly. Lily, usually a bundle of energy, began to tire easily. This wasn't the kind of exhaustion that comes from a day at the playground. She'd fall asleep at the dinner table, her fork still in hand. Her skin grew pale, almost translucent, and her appetite disappeared. When she started complaining of pain in her legs, Michael chalked it up to growing pains or maybe a stubborn flu. He took her to their local clinic, expecting a simple solution. A prescription, some vitamins, a pat on the back. But the doctor's face during the exam told a different story. Blood tests were ordered, and the results were alarming. The numbers didn't add up. The clinic referred Lily to a specialist at a larger hospital 2 hours away, and Michael's world began to tilt. The specialist's tests were thorough: blood work, scans, bone marrow biopsies. Days of agonizing waiting followed, each one stretching Michael's nerves thinner. Then came the call that changed everything. Sitting in his truck outside the auto shop, Michael listened as the doctor delivered the diagnosis: acute lymphoblastic leukemia, a fast-moving cancer that attacks the blood and bone marrow, especially in children. The doctor's explanation, abnormal white blood cells crowding out healthy ones, blurred in Michael's mind. All he could process was cancer, and the urgent command: we need to start treatment immediately. His heart pounded as he thought of Lily, her crayons scattered across the kitchen table, unaware of the battle ahead. The diagnosis was only the beginning of the nightmare. Michael was a single dad, scraping by on a mechanic's salary with bare-bones insurance that covered little more than routine checkups. The hospital laid out the reality: Lily's treatment, chemotherapy, hospital stays, possibly a bone marrow transplant, could cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Michael didn't have that kind of money. Rent was a struggle, and savings were non-existent. He pleaded with the hospital, offering to work extra shifts or sell his truck, but their response was cold: no insurance, no treatment. They referred him to another facility, suggesting they might be more accommodating. With Lily growing weaker by the day, Michael drove 3 hours to the next hospital, hope dwindling but still alive. The response was the same: without better insurance or a massive upfront payment, they couldn't help. They didn't even offer to keep Lily overnight for observation. Michael was unraveling. After each rejection, he'd sit in his truck, gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles whitened, fighting back tears so Lily wouldn't see his fear. "Daddy, am I gonna get better?" she'd ask, her voice small. He'd force a smile and say, "Of course, kiddo. We're gonna figure this out." But inside, he was drowning in terror, the weight of helplessness crushing him. By the third hospital rejection, Michael was running out of options. He called every facility within a 5-hour radius, but the answers were the same: no beds, no insurance, no chance. One administrator suggested applying for charity care, but the process was a bureaucratic labyrinth, endless forms, proof of income, and months of waiting. Lily didn't have months. Her condition was worsening, her energy fading, and Michael felt the world closing in, each door slamming shut in their faces. Let's step back to understand why this happens. In the United States, healthcare operates as a business, not a universal right. A 2023 Kaiser Family Foundation report revealed that 27 million Americans under 65 are uninsured, and another 60 million have plans so limited they barely cover emergencies. For children like Lily, who require specialized care like pediatric oncology, the system is particularly unforgiving. Only about 200 hospitals nationwide are equipped to handle complex pediatric cancer cases, and if you lack the right insurance or live too far from one, you're often out of luck. A 2021 study in the Journal of Pediatric Oncology highlighted a grim truth: children from low-income families are 30% less likely to receive timely cancer treatment than those with better coverage. These aren't just numbers, they're kids like Lily, suffering while their parents battle a system stacked against them. Michael's story is far from unique. Every year, thousands of families face the same rejections, navigating a maze of red tape and financial barriers. The system prioritizes profit over patience, leaving parents like Michael to beg for their children's lives. By the fourth hospital rejection, Michael was at his breaking point, but giving up wasn't an option. Lily was counting on him. Desperate and out of options, Michael turned to social media, specifically X, pouring his heart into posts begging for help. He shared Lily's story, hoping someone might know a doctor or hospital willing to take a chance. The responses were overwhelming but mostly unhelpful: kind words, prayers, and links to crowdfunding pages for other families in similar straits. Michael was grateful for the support, but prayers couldn't cure cancer, and donations wouldn't come fast enough. Then, at 2 a.m., bleary-eyed and scrolling through X, Michael saw a message that stopped him in his tracks. A nurse named Sarah, who worked at a children's hospital in Pittsburgh, wrote, "I know a doctor who might help. DM me." His hands trembled as he typed a reply. Sarah responded quickly, telling him about Dr. Emily Harper, a pediatric oncologist with a reputation for taking on the toughest cases and fighting for kids when no one else would. She gave Michael the hospital's contact information and told him to mention her name. For the first time in weeks, a spark of hope flickered. The next morning, Michael called, bracing for another rejection. But this time was different. The receptionist didn't dismiss him. She transferred him to Dr. Harper's office, and within hours, Michael was speaking directly with the doctor. He poured out their story: Lily's diagnosis, the rejections, the crushing fear. Dr. Harper's voice was steady and reassuring. "Bring Lily in tomorrow," she said. "We'll figure out the rest." Michael could hardly believe it. After months of closed doors, someone was finally opening one. The 6-hour drive to Pittsburgh was quiet, Lily clutching her favorite stuffed bunny, her eyes heavy with fatigue. When they arrived at the children's hospital, Dr. Emily Harper was waiting. She was younger than Michael expected, in her early 40s, with a warm smile and a no-nonsense demeanor. She knelt to Lily's level and said, "Hey, kiddo, I hear you're a great artist. Think you can draw me a picture later?" Lily nodded shyly, a faint spark returning to her eyes. For Michael, that moment was a lifeline, a sign that maybe, just maybe, they'd found someone who could help. Dr. Harper was upfront about the challenges. Lily's leukemia was aggressive, requiring immediate chemotherapy and possibly a bone marrow transplant down the line. The cost could easily exceed $200,000, a number that made Michael's stomach churn. He started to explain his insurance situation, but Dr. Harper stopped him. "We're not turning you away," she said firmly. "I'll handle the paperwork. You focus on Lily." For the first time in months, Michael felt a weight lift, however slightly. Lily began chemotherapy the next day, and the reality of treatment hit hard. For a 6-year-old, chemo isn't just medical, it's a grueling ordeal of needles, IVs, nausea, and days so exhausting she could barely lift her head. Michael never left her side, sleeping in a chair by her hospital bed, reading her stories, playing her favorite songs, and telling silly jokes to coax a smile. On her worst days, when Lily would stare blankly at the ceiling, too weak to speak, Michael's heart broke a little more. Dr. Harper was a constant presence, not just as a doctor but as a warrior for Lily. She spent hours battling the hospital's billing department, securing emergency financial aid through social workers, and even pulling strings to enroll Lily in a clinical trial for a promising new drug, blinatumomab. A 2022 study in the New England Journal of Medicine reported a 70% remission rate for kids with Lily's type of leukemia using this drug, and Dr. Harper was determined to give Lily every chance. But the road was rocky. The first round of chemo didn't work as well as hoped. Lily's cancer cells were stubborn, and her body was struggling to keep up. Michael's hope began to waver. Late at night, he'd slip into the hospital chapel, whispering prayers he wasn't sure he believed in. "Just give her a chance," he'd plead. "She's all I've got." The fear of losing Lily was a constant shadow, growing darker with each setback. 3 months into treatment, Dr. Harper came to Michael with a new plan. Standard chemotherapy wasn't enough. Lily needed a bone marrow transplant to have a real shot at survival. The challenge was finding a donor. Siblings are often the best match, but Lily was an only child, and Michael wasn't compatible. Dr. Harper added Lily to a national donor registry, but the odds were daunting. According to the National Marrow Donor Program, only about 1 in 500 children find a perfect match outside their family. Weeks passed with no donor, and Lily's condition deteriorated. Her small body was worn out from the chemo, her spirit fading. Michael was a shell of himself, barely eating or sleeping, haunted by the thought that time was running out. Then, one morning, Dr. Harper burst into Lily's room, her face lit with a grin. "We found a match," she announced. A 28-year-old woman from California, who had signed up for the donor registry years earlier, was a near-perfect fit for Lily. Michael was stunned, tears welling as he hugged Dr. Harper, who laughed and said, "You're gonna break me." The transplant was scheduled for the following month. It was a high-stakes procedure, with a 20% risk of complications like infection or rejection, according to the American Cancer Society. But it was Lily's best hope. Michael poured his energy into keeping her spirits up, bringing her crayons and paper to draw pictures of them together, stick-figure versions of a dad and daughter under a bright, hopeful sun. The day of the transplant was a test of endurance. Michael sat in the waiting room, staring at his phone, refreshing X for messages from Sarah, the nurse who had first connected him with Dr. Harper. Sarah had become a friend, checking in regularly and bringing Lily small gifts like stickers or coloring books. After 6 tense hours, Dr. Harper emerged. "It went as well as it could," she said. "Now we wait." The weeks that followed were agonizing. Lily had to stay in a sterile room to avoid infections, and Michael could only see her through a glass window, waving and blowing kisses. But slowly, signs of progress appeared. Her blood counts began to climb. Her energy returned in small bursts. One day, she asked for her crayons, a signal she was feeling like herself again. Michael clung to these moments, daring to hope. 2 months after the transplant, Dr. Harper delivered the news Michael had been praying for: Lily's in remission. Michael collapsed in sobs in the hospital hallway, overwhelmed with relief. Dr. Harper hugged him, tears in her own eyes. Lily wasn't completely out of danger. Remission is a milestone, not a finish line, but she was on the path to recovery, her future brighter than it had been in months. Lily's recovery is nothing short of a miracle, but it's also a sobering reminder of the flaws in our healthcare system. Every year, roughly 15,000 children in the U.S. are diagnosed with cancer, according to the American Childhood Cancer Organization. Too many face the same barriers Michael and Lily did: rejections, financial hurdles, and a system that often values profit over human lives. Dr. Harper is a hero, but her role shouldn't require such extraordinary effort. No doctor should have to battle their own hospital to save a child. No parent should have to plead for their kid's survival. Since Lily's recovery, Michael has channeled his gratitude into advocacy. He shares their story on X, speaks at local events, and even testified at a state hearing on pediatric care access. His goal isn't fame, it's ensuring other families don't face the same nightmare. Dr. Harper continues her work in Pittsburgh, fighting for kids every day, while staying in touch with Michael and Lily. Each Christmas, Lily sends her a new drawing, a small token of a bond forged in crisis. This story is about more than one dad, one doctor, or one little girl. It's about how we treat the most vulnerable among us, how we rise when the system fails. It's about hope that persists even in the darkest moments. Michael and Lily's journey shows what's possible when compassion triumphs over bureaucracy, but it also demands we ask, why does it take a miracle to get there? If this story moved you, dive into another tale of resilience and hope by checking out the next video. Lily's fight is one of many, and every story deserves to be heard.